Thanks, Ross, and good morning, everyone. My name is Joanna Kuligowska. That's my last name. It's quite hard to pronounce. I don't blame anyone. Before we start, and I'm very excited for this panel because we have a great representation here. From our side, from HODS, we are a technology vendor. We cater mostly to mobile operators and messaging companies. And help them really get the most out of the messaging business. We focus on securitization and monetization of messaging. But I'm pleased to be joined today by Kremi and Jeff, and I think we will have a great discussion about unlocking the potential of SMS. I have a very short presentation just to set the scene and bring some talking points to my panel. Bring into the picture how we believe at HOD that the key of unlocking the potential of A2P SMS can be differentiated pricing. There've been a lot of great presentations, especially yesterday from Nick Lane from Mobile Squared and now Nick as well from Juniper, that have really highlighted the state of the market. So I'm not going to repeat all of that, but I would like to bring it into perspective that 2023 has been a very challenging year for A2P SMS, especially on the international side. It's no secret after those presentations that we've seen over the last year, a day and a morning today, is that today SMS is really facing two major threats. So one is from the side of fraud, and today we'll not be focusing in this panel on the fraud very much, although it is my favorite topic, James, as well. And pricing is my second favorite topic to talk about. But for the purpose of this session, we will be focusing on the commercial model of SMS. So there has been a lot of talk about increasing pricing of SMS globally, especially on the international side. This price increase is even. And we have to put it also in the perspective of fraud, going back to fraud, that the commercial fraud, especially trashing of A2P SMS and artificial inflation of traffic, further impacts the cost of SMS in the brand perspective. So there is a price increase and there is the element of obviously artificially generated traffic that increases the costs for brands even further. And then today, SMS has a lot of competition and is facing a lot of competition from alternative channels. It's basically a price war. And being a very mature technology, we spoke, was it 31 years? SMS is a 31 years old technology. The pricing model is very outdated. It hasn't changed. There have been some initiatives over the years, mostly failed. The pricing model is not flexible, and that does not bring SMS in a healthy competition with the alternative channels that are usually cheaper and provide more flexibility in terms of charging models, such as OTT channels, for instance, WhatsApp. If we look at the A2P traffic profile, it's very important to mention when we look at the total volumes of A2P SMS, we're dealing with, shall we say, a variety of use cases. This is, by the way, credit to our dear partners from Mobile Squared, this data. So we see that in total A2P volume, we see different use cases for A2P, such as alerting, marketing, reminders. So security is a very important part. But when we look at the international traffic specifically, this is a very different breakdown. So international traffic, over 90% of international traffic is verification of nature, namely OTP. So there's a very high dependency of international A2P on the international A2P on the OTP traffic streams. And if we put it in the perspective of this traffic being generated by 10 to 15 brands globally, the increasing price really impacts these brands very greatly. I think Mobile Square has been presenting some great data on the actual monetary impact on brands, but it's important to mention these dependencies because if a channel is so much dependent on one use case, if this use case is to erode, and these days we see erosion of traffic, so we see reduction of international A2P. some of it shifting to alternative channels, but also major brands really reducing their dependency on SMS for the verification use case in favor of different technologies. So that's quite important to mention. So I thought when we talk to our customers and we help them to understand what are the ways for A2P SMS forward to stay relevant, we talk about obviously preservation of the integrity and security of the SMS channel. But really today we want to focus on implementing differentiated value-based pricing to compete with these alternative channels that SMS is today competing against. So when defining a pricing strategy for mobile operators, it is very important to apply a very strategic approach to price increasing, especially today where the market is really under how to say, I mean, it's shaking a bit, right? So we have some markets that have lost a very large amount of volumes, especially on the international SMS side. So while implementing price increases, we believe operators have to be very cautious, as simply increasing the rates every month or every 3 months in a kind of erratic way tends to destabilize market even further and causes even bigger potential erosion to alternative channels, as well as all the attempts to bypass and trash messaging in the wholesale market, while that increase happens because someone might be potentially making a loss, a monetary loss, if the rate increases overnight by X%. And it's very important to take into account a specific market elasticity and opportunities on this market. So when operators looking to implement price increases, they really need to look at their market, also the regional markets, the SME market in their particular economy. That's very obviously relevant for domestic traffic specifically, but also what are the competitive channels that today SMS is competing against. So there's a very big importance of global intelligence, pricing intelligence needed, and that education component is very important. That's something that we as HOT, we provide to our customers on a daily basis. And very importantly, communication and sustainable implementation of price increases is critical, as brands, enterprises, they have financial executives as well that are responsible for budgets. So the impact that the price increase can have on a budget for, let's say, an OTT or enterprise that sends a large amount of SMS messages can be a big decision going forward if this particular company will carry on using SMS. So a brand or enterprise might be presented a choice. If my price goes up by 30%, I can accept that increase of the budget, or I have to decrease my traffic to maintain the same cost. And that's not what we want as an industry, obviously. So why do we believe there is the need for differentiated pricing in SMS A2P? Like Ross opened, we believe not all messaging is created equal, and it's pretty common in different industries to charge different priority services at a different price. But most importantly, the pricing of SMS has to be aligned with its value. We believe today SMS has reached a price ceiling in some markets. It just does not present enough value for brands to use it, even for the verification. And that's why we see these brands shifting the traffic elsewhere. So it's important to align this pricing with the value. At the end of the day, it's about value. We spoke about it last year. What is really the value for the enterprise? Well, we know this value is not 20 cents for international OTP today, right? So it comes down to cost efficiency for enterprises. Like I spoke before, they need to maintain their budgets and can further help with also enhanced customer targeting and segmentation of traffic. So that's really all from my side. I want to bring some perspective, and hopefully we can have a discussion. Over to you, Ross.
Yep. You take this mic. Perfect. Thanks, Joanna. Sorry for butchering your beautiful Polish name. You can have a nice accent, but if you can't speak, it's all useless. So, Joanna, just getting into it, so many businesses, the vast majority of businesses, just aren't using A2P SMS. What do you think is the reason? Is it is it the cost? Is it the pricing model, or is it a sort of lack of awareness?
It's all of the big factors that you mentioned, but I think there's the lack of adoption of. A2P SMS is basically lack of awareness. I mean, I still have in my head James's friend. Was it his name? Oli from the gym. Yeah, on one of the MEF events, a person who was truly surprised and flabbergasted how really SMS can help with the database of the gym customers, right? So we have a lot of companies that are not using SMS because I believe they are not aware of the technology and the power SMS can bring. Simply, most of the CPaaS players will be selling to the largest enterprises. The operators don't really sell to brand directly, so there's nobody in the industry really selling to the SME segment, and the SME segment is the one that the adoption of SMS would be to increase, would help to really increase the traffic volumes.
Premi, I'll put the same question onto you.
All of the points that were mentioned today are valid, but I think one has kind of evaded the scene, and this is the trust. The trust has been eroded in the channel, and that is also, apart from the pricing problem, have driven brands away from it. So we really need to restore that trust before we move forward. How are we going to restore it? There are obviously various techniques that we can use, but I think it's not a one-man job. It's a community job, and everyone has to take part in it if we want to preserve the channel.
Yeah.
Should we say?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Perfect. Ron, thanks for coming back a second panel with this omni-channel, so I appreciate it. Just kind of, I'm building on that point. Are we as an industry doing enough, do you think, to kind of sing the praises of SMS and showing the value?
A good question. I want to answer as well Kremi's trust issue, right? So trust, yes, there are various ways how we are handling trust. But I think also the price is also driving lack of trust, right? Because as we've seen over there, okay, smashing apart, there's the AIT issue, right? So why is that happening? Because the prices are going up, and obviously everybody wants to make money. So that is something that needs to be tackled, yes. But it's driven also by the pricing strategy. What we have seen yesterday was as well, interesting enough from Nick, is that SMA has reached a plateau, right? But the other messaging are actually increasing, which that tells us or tells me one thing, that the more these new use cases that are out there, the new messaging channels are taking over, right? So we need to look at what are these use cases and how can we bring them back on SMS. I have another example. I am staying in UK at the moment, and where I live in this village, I couldn't get an appointment, yeah? Let alone a notification, an appointment, a booking an appointment, let alone a notification that I am due for my appointment. What I'm trying to say is, do we need to have this complex messaging system, right? So SMS has still a value for the smaller enterprises. They need to keep it simple, right? I don't really need to receive an RCS message or a funky message to tell me, listen, your appointment today is at 6 o'clock, right? So yes, I think there is still value in SMS. There's a lot of value in SMS. There's a lot of potential in SMS. We just need to work together, right, with broad brands, and that's why we have the operator here, to bring the trust back and build new use cases, as we're going to see. So, and let's finish off here. We are here basically is to I'm not saying that RCS will not grow and WhatsApp will not grow. Those are here to stay, and that's why we're here, because this is an omni-channel discussion. But SMS is another channel. What we want to do is basically we want to enable the operator to have a fair fight, right? To bring differentiate commercial prices in this whole environment.
Yeah, well said, Jeffrey. It's great having operators on these panels. It's very important, you know, as Ron says, we really do have to all collaborate and work together. From your side, do you think that, you know, the operators have a full appreciation for the full value of SMS, or do sometimes maybe overlooked a little bit? Or
I had something else running around in my mind at the moment, and that's that a lot of private equities obviously entering businesses all around the world, and the value of an organization is heavily driven by its ability to digitalize itself. So to be online, what's it doing online presents a lot of value now. And I think A2P SMS falls into that digitalization of an organization. So you're utilizing that as part of the digitalization, which is ultimately the value for the shareholder of organization. What you'll find that as that digitalization matures, you'll find many, many more messages coming through OTT apps. You'll find as the apps are developed and formed, even in the small enterprise space. So you're really up against it in terms of long term. My view that comes from that is that I think with mobile as an operator, we're getting a lot more services heading down data pipes. So as you know, WhatsApp came along and everything. And I think one of the reasons for that is that in the telco space, we've really transactionalized ourselves. So we've really put ourselves at price per minute. We've put ourselves at price per SMS. Whereas in other spaces, it's not quite like that. And the retail space is very much moved to unlimited. You're seeing different authentication coming through on HLR lookups, GPS in the US, etc. And all of that's heading towards sort of unlimited all-you-can-eat lookups eventually. So I think there's a huge value in A2P messaging for a customer experience and for an enterprise. But perhaps the pricing does need to change. Perhaps it needs to take a look at what position an organization is in its digital development and then price accordingly. But the ones that are far down the road of digital enablement, I think that, there is a point to price lower. And even to the point where I've got my shareholders to please, but also I've got my customers to please. So it might be that if you can set your budget at the start of the year and just have your shareholders pleased by the revenue and margin you're going to get, you might give an all-you-can-eat offer based on, I don't know, 100 messages per IMSI per month or whatever. But that's how I see it at the minute.
Joanna, coming back to yourself, you know, rich business messaging is, beginning to really, grow lately. Do you think that it will make an impact on A2P SMS and in turn, the commercial model?
Rich business messaging is already making an impact on SMS. I mean, WhatsApp is clearly making an impact already on SMS. So I believe SMS will be further facing the pressure from the rich channels, and it has to compete for especially around the more richer use cases or the more complex use cases. It's going to be hard to compete, right, for SMS because it's a basic channel. But when it comes to I think what Ron has said is quite important, that when it comes to this basic functionality, SMS will need to compete with these rich channels on pricing. And even on the OTP use case, now it has to compete with not just rich channels, but also different channels that threaten OTP. So that competition will continue if the SMS pricing model will not change. And, we're talking about all about omni-channel at the end of the day. So there has to be an abundance of channels going forward to serve all these use cases. But for SMS to stay relevant, it really needs to evolve. And by the way, we are not focusing too much on trust today in this particular session, but next to the commercial model, we believe that security really is key to the prosperity and sustainability of SMS as a channel. But I think pricing and the approach to pricing definitely needs to change for A2P to even stand a chance to compete against richer channels and alternative channels.
You mentioned the omni-channel and how it's important to have multiple channels. I mean, no channel is perfect, and you need different ways to reach your consumer at the right time, in order
and
to
according
really get
to the
them.
preference as well, right?
Yeah.
Because users have preference. So it's not that SMS has to have a monopoly going forward, but it is still, and I think it was widely spoken yesterday, the most effective channel.
But staying with that, do you think that rich messaging could be an existential threat to A2P SMS?
That depends. Yeah, I believe they can coexist and occupying a niche for themselves. Yes, where the rich messaging will serve the rich communication, the conversational use cases, whereas SMS can still be this basic, and we spoke about like the basic technologies that can make things way better very quickly. It can be really very powerful, especially for these smaller brands that for them, embarking on the journey with a very rich channel, it might be so complex. Yeah. So if SMS is kept simple and the price reflects the value, I believe it can safely coexist and prosper together with the richer channels that will take the more complex use cases.
Yeah, perfect. Kremi, coming back to yourself, Twilio is a leading C+ player, and there's a lot of brands in your portfolio. Do you think that what do the brands think? Do you think that implementing sort of differentiated pricing or a commercial model, as we say in MEF, to send more SMS traffic, do you think this will increase the number of use cases and kind of help the industry grow?
Well, I can tell you that something has to change for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's time, it's well overdue. And if there are many cases where SMS as a channel will be a suitable channel, now it's going to be very interesting to see how all the other channels will develop, price themselves, differentiate themselves. Then we will know the answer to the existential question, right? Is it going to happen or not? But at the moment, for sure, we do see the erosion. The brands are not happy about it, obviously, and they're fighting back. It's normal response.
Yeah, they're definitely making their voice heard, I think.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Some
countries louder than others, but yeah.
Yeah. Ron, come back to yourself. Talking more practically and getting into the nitty gritty, what are some of the use cases you're seeing for 2FA right now?
Two-factor authentication?
Yes.
I think when it comes to messaging, right, we are seeing a split, right? That's what we look and we're seeing this at home, right? So as Joanna mentioned, we see two different markets where the international is all based on two-factor authentication, OTP kind of traffic, whereas the domestic is mainly on the notification side. I believe personally that two-factor authentication going forward will move towards different type of mobile identity, digital IDs, and all this kind of stuff. So would be heavily moving towards this kind of a new era, right? So that's when it comes to two-factor authentication. However, as I started in the beginning, I said, like, I still believe that SMS has a place still on the messaging side of things, right? So there are a numerous amount of use cases, which I can tell you immediately, like I mentioned this multiple times, right? So, for example, in-apps, right? I'm not a fan of having these notifications on my phone because it's congested, right? So I just remove all in-app notifications. I was here again in UK. I know the pricing here is very, very ideal for this kind of stuff. I got like six messages notifications in 20 minutes to reserve a table, right? So these kind of use cases that we need to look at from a brand perspective, right? So then we need to have the operator aptitude to do this kind of deals, right? When you can differentiate between different type of use cases. But again, I mean, use cases, you can have many. There's customer care, conversational, P2A, A2P, right? So again, let's not forget, and we mentioned this multiple times, that SMS is still one of the channels that is available on all the phones. You know, if I send it, 99% of the times you receive it, right? So I don't have that worry that you might not receive it. Like again, the in-app, which another example I gave was these discussions I have with my bank, right? In the application, where I then forget that I was chatting with my bank, and all of a sudden I go and find that the chat has been closed, right? Because I did not respond in 30 minutes. I'm like, I have to start all over again, you know? So all these use cases, which would cost much less, yes. Are they ready to pay 20 cents? Definitely not, right? But if there's a value in the message, just to get you back customer satisfaction, right? I believe, yes.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that there's still space for this.
Is there any use cases you'd say that are currently not being fully utilized because of incorrect commercial model?
These are one of them. I'm mentioning UK because I know that in UK domestic price is very, it is what it is, but it's small, right? So, but we know countries where still domestic prices are very high, and that's what we are trying to drive at the moment. Say, listen, okay, we know that all different type of categories are different, right? All different type of traffic, because we're not saying charge all domestic at 1 cent, for example, right? We're saying categorize your traffic, right? Put value on your traffic. As I said, what value do you have on your customer satisfaction? What value does this message have for you to make sure that the table has been reserved and you turn up? Because obviously, if you don't turn up, I'm losing money, right? Nobody's coming to take that table. Has been reserved for you for an hour. I lost money, you know? So what is the value that this message bring? So again, I mean, from a pricing strategy, you have to take everything into consideration. The market you are operating in, the cost of living, stuff like this, right? So it's not all the markets the same.
Yeah. Jeff, what challenges do you see to kind of implement new commercial models for SMS, and what kind of support would be needed?
So speaking from an operator perspective, I think that sort of I've increased all my prices 15% in the last year and the year prior, and I think the reason for that is you're testing your elasticity on what's coming from the aggregator. At the end of the day, you are going to start to hit a ceiling, and you are going to need the support of the aggregator to work with you. So at the end of the day, you're looking at a full revenue number. So I'm probably not answering your question, but I'm off on a tangent again. but you're isolating a revenue number that you're comfortable with. You're putting it in the budget. You're ready to go. Then you need to speak to your aggregators, whether it's through RFP. And to be honest, at the end of the day, for an operator, it doesn't matter so much the price. What matters is the headline revenue that comes through on the budget year after year. So a lot of this dialogue is I know it can be directed at the operator, but perhaps the discussion needs to be different. That it's the revenue level will set what we do underneath it in terms of differentiated pricing is up to us, and it's up to you. You've already taken the ownership with the enterprise, so it's up to you to commoditize that enterprise, that ownership. We've got enough to do on our side, roaming, you name it. That's how I see it. But I think we're testing the elasticity as we go, and I think that's probably what's happening around the world. We keep going until we find our limit, and then we see what happens. Yeah. So what was your question? Challenges?
No. Just, I mean, what are the challenges in order to implement new types of commercial model for SMS, and what kind of support?
I think the challenges on our side are definitely around probably around EDR pricing, CDR pricing, bill reconciliation, checking that the messages that are coming from each particular segment are priced in the right way accordingly. And I think that's just probably a bit too much work for us. We can see throughput. If the volumes are there, we sort of have to trust the aggregator that the prices are in the right sets. So I think that's a challenge, that we lose a bit of visibility on this, and that comes down to trust of your aggregator. But that's why the top level revenue is so important as well.
Yep. Joanna, what do you think we as an industry are doing right, and what are we doing wrong today?
And which aspect? Yeah, it's a big question. How long time do I have?
Yeah.
I think what we are doing right is that we are addressing for quite some time already the some of the elephants in the room, or we are naming the issues that our industry is facing. We're talking about the erosion of trust, about fraud. We're talking about the necessity of implementing new models. I think what we are, I don't want to say what we are doing wrong, but what we're not doing enough is actually taking actions collectively. And I think even though there is more and more collaboration year on year within the industry, thanks to you guys, for instance, Mobile Ecosystem Forums and other organizations that keep an open forum for different ecosystem players. I think there's still not a lot of action actually rooting out the bad practices in the market. We all know that there are. It's not easy to name people that are committing fraud, for instance, because it's not that easy to prove. But I think without enforcement, we only have words, right? So moving forward, I think in order to achieve preserve the trust, which Grammy spoke about, we need to take actions and really start punishing the bad actors. And I think there are already some initiatives the brands are doing to achieve that. But I think the collaboration needs to increase. And the actions they have to be stricter, in my opinion. But I think it's very good that there is a lot of open communication, and it has been becoming more and more open in the last sort of years, because we all know today SMS is really, especially international, it's in a bad place, right? It might recover. Or it might not, yeah? And that will be a problem to a lot of companies here in the room and outside of this room. So as an industry, we really need to think of together implement actions in order to resolve it.
Yeah. Grammy, I think I might put the same question on you, because it's quite a big question. What are we as an industry doing right, and what are we doing wrong?
How long do we have? I can tell you what we as a company are doing right for our customers, because we can always focus on the bad. We know what's the bad. We all have identified the areas that we need to work in. But at the end of the day, it's the customer and what their experience is. And that is what is important for Twilio as a company, to preserve that customer experience. And we are led by that. So we have implementation on the fraud side. We are trying to work with the right partners, follow the right trends, and absorb what's happening, constantly evolve and develop. And I think the SMS channel as a channel has been a bit too stale for too long. And obviously, bad players have taken advantage of it. So now we all know what is happening. Let's do something about it to make that customer experience even better and preserve the channel.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it is the channel that delivers 99%. It is open for everyone, and it could be a lot cheaper than it is today.
Ron, Joanna kind of mentioned the sort of collaboration aspect, and I think it's worth honing in on, what do all these sort of, players along at the various, levels, at the various stakeholders, what needs to be done in terms of collaboration between them?
Good. Can I answer this question as well before?
Yeah.
Because I like it.
It's the number one question.
I think personally, we became too negative, right? And it feels like we gave up. We gave up on SMS, right? It's an old technology. As RCMS is funkier, so let's give up on it. I don't think we're there yet, right? I think there's still, as I explained, place for SMS. Your question was about joining. Collaboration. Yes. Yeah, that's why we wanted to bring both sides of the ecosystem, right? We have the brands and we have the operator. So, and we're sitting in the middle. We want to, as I said in the beginning, to be able to enable the operator to be able, right, to have these different commercial models. Then obviously they need to have a partner of trust, right? That can go to the brands and start selling to the brands and say, listen, we have these new use cases for you, which we think could be of more value, right? So yes, we need to be working together, right? The three players, because that's how you enable it at the end of the day. Nobody can do it on their own. So you need the operator to be on board with this. You need to have the partners, the brands, to also be have the appetite to do it, right? So it is very important to understand that, listen, there is still hope. Let's not give up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's still some use cases that can bring money to the operators at the end of the day.
Yeah. Jeff, it only seems fair to give you the $1 million question.
I was just going to add to that, actually. I think there's a fourth player as well, and the fourth player is the regulator. We need to lobby harder. I think in some markets we can't even look at any content whatsoever, and it's very difficult to protect the customer when you can't look at any content. You can't find out perhaps what is being sent that should not be simply being sent, things like that. So we work hard on that as well as operators.
Jeff, do you think that, just staying with that, there's always a risk if things aren't cleaned up, that the regulator can just step in and make some sort of changes that people don't necessarily want? Or
yeah, I don't have the answer to that question. I find, there's still debates going on. What, even today, 2020, what are we? 2024, 3. There's still debates going on about how do you define what is a call with CLI and not CLI in the voice world. That's going on in forums. So probably they're going to, of course they've got the potential to stuff it up.
And it happens in some markets. We'll see it in some markets further to Europe, but there are markets that have been so affected by smashing that's the only thing regulator came up with was, okay, well, from today we cannot accept any links in SMS. I think, maybe even you wrote a post about it the other day as well. Yeah, but that's reality. We have markets in Southeast Asia that don't allow sending links in SMS, which effectively kills what SMS can be used for, right? Because most SMS will contain a link unless it's a 2FA or OTP. But it's not the way just to say, okay, let's kill it because it's causing issues. Instead of it, the regulator in this country should be looking into how to, and I think that was a panel Ron was yesterday with NetNumber, and there are ways to apply technology in a way that can comply with regulatory. So just simply saying let's not do it at all, let's give up. It's not the way to go. But sometimes, because the impact of fraud is so big on the subscriber level, and what Jeffrey has said, the regulator might not have enough knowledge to understand the technology. The easiest way is just to say, okay, not allowed.
Yeah. Guys, we are running out of time. We're running over. Susan will kill me if I don't end soon. But is there any questions online, or not questions online, but any questions in the room? Oh, we got a question over here. Yeah. I'll bring it over here. Oh, I'll give you after. Yeah.
You spoke about differentiated pricing based upon the value of a business message. And in that, we kind
Inderpal,
of-
just make sure you speak closer into the mic.
yeah, okay.
Thanks.
So you spoke about differentiated pricing based upon the value that the message, that the SMS message is providing. And generally, what we see is that all authentication messages like OTP are clubbed into one as if it's one value. But they're actually very different values. Some of the companies are riding upon OTP as almost like a KYC. I mean, telcos have spent tens of dollars or multiple dollars to do a KYC, and services just depend upon that number as a KYC. Others are depending upon OTP as a two-factor authentication just to make sure your account is not being hacked. Others are depending upon the OTP simply as a way of, oh, I want to make sure the number that you're linking to your account is kind of, you don't make a mistake typing it in. It's very different value. How does the industry kind of provide a differentiated pricing? I mean, somebody who's doing a KYC is deriving a corporate value of $50 per subscriber. Somebody who's just doing a two-factor authentication is doing it repeatedly, but is not that much value that they're actually getting as a company.
Yes, very good answer. Oh, very good question or remark. Even OTP has value, right? Starting from what are you securing, for example, right? If I'm entering my social media, it's totally different than I'm securing my bank account. So even there, you have differentiated, different type of commercial models. Okay, so I think you need to understand exactly, as you said, right, as well. If I'm accessing Facebook, what's the ARPU there, right? If I'm accessing, I don't know, making some advertisement, Alibaba, Zara, you know, where I can, I have a more, how can I say, a higher ARPU. So all these are part of the pricing strategy that Joanna was mentioning. So when we also define the commercial models, we have a set of criteria, right? How you define the market, for example, that you are operating in. For sure, not all the markets are the same, right? The cost of living of the countries. So all these come into play. No, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
So, because it can, you're very right? That can even differ from one brand to another. What is the actual value for the OTP because of the use case the OTP is being used for? So where we are coming from is that we want to enable operators to have the visibility and control of what's passing through the network in order so that they can segmentize the traffic that's passing through the network. And by implementing the pricing strategy together with a brand, or the trusted aggregator together with the brand, try to find that sweet spot of ultimately what is the value for the brand for this particular use case. And at the moment, it's not happening a lot in the industry. Even we were saying SMS is equal, OTP is all the same rate, right? So what we're saying is that by using technology, this can be achieved, that segmentation can be achieved. But the collaboration of the whole value chain is needed in order to achieve that.
We have one just here, say your name and your company, and we'll have to keep it really, really brief. But yeah.
Lee Suka from Cinch. I was fascinated by the regulators being brought up. Now, I've visibly aged in this industry, as some of you might testify. But the conversation about the regulator has not changed. I wonder whether they're equipped to make this industry successful, because my sense is they're too busy worrying what type of scorpion the celebrity is eating on I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here.
Yeah, and we yesterday I finished off my my panel with this. I mean, we need regulators to understand, to bring us to the table to discuss. There's no, right? Let's understand the technology. How can we help you? Joanna mentioned, we got these regulations, right? Block all URLs on SMS. I mean, what are you going to do if these URLs are going on an encrypted channel, right? Are you going to block everything? In the same market, you have to have SIM registration. Fine, let's do SIM registration. You have to have an ID. What was the next problem, right? Identity theft. So regulators needs to bring us to the table because we are the experts, right? Not hard alone. We are the experts who can help them with these kind of regulations. You want to add something?
I haven't dealt with the regulators specifically on SMS messaging. Other areas we have, they've dialogued with us. You've got to be careful, obviously, how you word things. But we've had responses and some good outcomes. So I don't know yet.
Okay. Sorry, I'm hijacking it.
Yeah,
It's James.
come
I'm
on
coming
in.
in. I love this topic.
I can see you itching to come in there.
Quickly, Jeffrey, your next career is in politics. Your way you can avoid questions. That's absolutely stellar. It's absolutely amazing. Congratulations.
Happy to do that anytime.
Very, very good. Fantastic. But it's lovely. In all seriousness, fantastic having a mobile operator. And Lebara is not a MEF member. We would love to have Lebara as a MEF member. So that's it. I could not avoid that, first of all.
You should be in sales.
I am. Yeah. So that's the first thing. Secondly, with regards to commercial model, I've never heard anyone mention this at all, but my parting shot from MEF will be, why don't we have in SMS, like we have in RCS, in the RCS commercial models chat, a price for a one-way message and a price for an SMS chat? Very conversational, very simple. And in the perfect world, you would have James as a global regulator saying your international price can be no more than 5 times a domestic price. Finished, done. And then you have your price, whatever, say 1x for a one-way, and it could be 2 or 3x for a chat. Simplicity is key to adoption. And the problem is you've got enterprises, you as an enterprise, so you've got mobile operators want to know what their total revenue is going to be for the shareholder perspective. But then an enterprise wants to know, what am I paying for a message this year? And the unfortunate situation is you cannot say that in SMS. So that's really, real tough situation. So simplicity is key. But thank you all very, very much.
Thank you,
Wonderful
Hod, for
panel.
sponsoring as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.